Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. And we have our guests, Connie, Snyder, Reinecke. Oh, I was almost going to say Reinecke again, like I was telling you earlier. so,
You got it.
yes. Uh, so, everyone, don't mind the painting view on the side there. I wanted to have a little bit of a view. Um, of the painting part. And normally, what I would do is I would read off a little introduction of you, Connie, but it's on my phone, which is now looking down at the table. So, would you mind introducing yourself to our guests, to our audience? Um, because I'm so tech savvy like that.
No
Go
worries.
ahead, go ahead.
I can do that.
Thank
So
you.
I live in Lake Tapps, Washington. And so I'm just a little bit southeast of Seattle. And I grew up down in Centralia, which was where Michelle and I met. And we actually met at church down there and sat next to each other in choir. So and we both have a love for art and painting. And so we've stayed friends over Facebook for a long time. But I've been
Yes.
doing watercolor and creating pretty much my whole life. Watercolor I picked up kind of more as an adult, and I've taught classes, and I enter competitions, and I do all the fun art stuff with it. So it's been a passion of mine because I just love the medium of watercolor and getting to create beautiful scenes and pretty things, and I just love nature. So it's been a nice combination.
I have to tell you that watercolor was brought into my life because of you. I think if you remember, I was having a real hard time with watercolor. I I always did acrylic and I couldn't do watercolor before. And when you were saying, like you have to try watercolor, I s- I forgot when it was, but I was like, let me try. But I still had a really hard time adjusting to watercolor coming from painting with acrylics just because of the way it goes onto the paper. You know, I feel like acrylics build
They
on
behave
top
very
of each
different.
other. Yes, yeah, you can just layer it on top of each other, and watercolor, you cannot do that, right? Am I correct about saying it like that?
Right, you
Yeah.
can, but you're gonna see the layers underneath as well.
Yes. So I am actually scrolling right here to find the Facebook one because Facebook is supposed to go live. Um, but usually I have to say yes. Like I have to do the audience thing and change it to public, but I am not seeing it. So I hope that it went on live on Facebook, which I'm not seeing. Give me 1 second as I switch over there. I'm not sure. I don't want to disconnect.
No
So
worries.
um, um, hopefully I didn't. I didn't disconnect, did I?
Nope, you're here.
Okay. All right. I'm just all over the place. Okay. So I am looking at my own Facebook and I am not seeing it on Facebook. So it doesn't look like it went live there. Let me see if I can do a push. Because, like I said, tech is not my friend.
Me neither. Don't feel bad.
So, okay. Um, it's kind of weird because it's saying that it is live. It is live. It's right here because I can like
Okay.
it. And look, I just liked my own thing. Let me make sure that. video. Okay, I see it here. I just hope everyone else does. So if you guys do, please let me know. If not, let me know too. And we can
It
figure it out.
sometimes takes a while to show up.
Yeah. And if anyone knows how to get it to be on when it's supposed to be on. Oh, actually, it's on the 31. So 31 Steps to Mastery. I see it joining there. Um, and it's public. So I know it's on that side. But all of the other pages, not quite sure. So we are where we are and we will
No
carry
worries.
on that way. Yeah, that's the way to be because, you know, it is what it is. I like doing it like that. So it's like when I invite people on to my podcast, and oh, look, Elka's coming in. So let's see. Hi, Elka.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. So anyway, like I was saying, it's I like everything being like totally casual, really laid back because I never feel like there should be any stress on this kind of stuff. Even though when I first started, huge stress on my behalf. I don't know why. I thought everything had to be so, and then I realized that it didn't have to be. And so I want to be able to tell other people that start a podcast or start anything, that just go ahead and start, because I think that's what prevents people from starting is that whole nervousness about creating, right? You're like, do I do this? Do
Definitely.
I actually put the brush to the paper? But what if I mess up the paper? You know, things like that, right? So
Very much.
just go ahead and just do it, you know, because we're all, I say we're all creatives. We're created by a creator, and if we are made in his image, then we have a creator inside of all of us. So
Definitely.
praise God for that. Yes. So, and today, what are we doing today?
Well, I was going to go show you a couple of paintings that I've done recently, just so you can kind of see my style. And then
Yes, let's do that.
I've got a little let's see if we see it, little tulip field, forest like paint. And since I don't have a second camera today, I'm going to try to like show you kind of like the steps as I go. So I'll
Okay.
flip around my painting and show you instead of actually showing you the painting. But I can show you a couple of things I've been working on. Things I painting. I have always loved flowers. That was my big thing. I've
Oh, I
loved
like that.
doing roses. That was the first thing I learned to draw when I was little. I love animals. So that's one I just did that was really fun with all the feathers.
Oh, that's
I did a couple parrots
beautiful.
parrots recently for a class that I'm in. And then I love to play. This is just one of my playing ones where it was just negative painting and playing with watercolor. And I primarily do watercolor, but sometimes I do mixed media too.
So that one that you
And
just
this was
showed
some
us,
post I did.
the oh, I
Yeah,
like that one. I saw that on your website. The the
yeah,
fishes, I saw that on your website and I was reading it because I love to read when people paint what they use, and on the fishes you use like different paints like mica paint or something, right? You were using
yeah,
different.
yeah. I'll show you a couple things on it. Yeah. This is the one I just showed
Okay.
before you were asking about.
Yeah, so
Oops.
um I remember I was saying that I didn't want to do watercolor because I couldn't, my mind could not do the white. And that is the parts, right? Like those negative where the trees are, that's the
Yeah,
parts you're really not painting, correct?
right. So in this one, everything that was the lightest is painted first. You leave that and then you paint behind it. So then you paint your darks behind it to make that depth of field into the forest. And so that was my
Oh,
practice for that because I've kind of always struggled with that too. And watercolor is
okay.
opposite of acrylic. And so instead of painting light to or dark to light, you're painting light to dark in most cases.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Ah.
that's the fish. And this one, I learned a bunch of different techniques from a class I was in, the Jean Haynes online school. And there's actually there's like mica crystals on the fish, which you can't really see, but it makes them super shiny, like scales. And then there's actually like sand and little beads in the coral to make it look like very organic coral. So that was a lot of fun. I really want to do a bigger one like that.
Wow,
You can
that
see
is
any of that.
super nice. I
Yeah.
noticed that that gold looking color, that's the sand, or is that what
Yeah,
you're
the one
looking
you're
for?
probably referring to is the seahorses that I did. And I don't think I have that one with me, but the seahorses I painted in watercolor and then I sprinkled gold mica powder on it. And then I also have some
Oh,
watercolor, metallic watercolor paints that are mica based that are really fun to use too. Because then you can add sparkle to anything.
nice.
This one is
I
my sunset geese.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And one thing that Michelle and I have in common is we both love bright colors. We both paint a lot of nature stuff and a lot of jewel tones in our art. So we kind of have that same vision when it comes to that. This was
Love
a
it.
nature scene that was from a friend's photograph. Her name's Kendra, and she took this photograph when she was out hiking and in Washington, and I just loved it because it reminded me of growing up hiking in our forests up here.
And I noticed, like, okay, the sun rays, or the light that's coming
Yeah,
through. How do you do that in watercolor?
I do a lot of lifting, like where I'll actually like paint something and then I actually will go in with a brush and lift the color, or even use like a magic eraser, the like cleaning sponges. You can use that to lift color. And so that's pretty much how those ones were done, is that I just like lifted it off with a brush to make the
Okay.
dappled light. And then in the trail, you can see that has the dappled light through there. So, and I love the
Ah,
contrast of the dappled light through the dark breeze, into the forest. Just reminded me of growing up hiking and being out in the woods with my mom and my family. And then here's some more
love it.
flowers I did last spring. Some daffodils I was just playing with, some brush strokes. There's some fun like brush strokes in here that are kind of abstract. And I really liked how that was set against the nice flowers.
See, that is nice.
And this is some more dahlias, just playing around with flowers. And
Nice.
I had some tulips. These ones I did a while ago, but for spring, I figured tulips are appropriate. I did those.
Oh yeah, those are super nice. I like that.
Yeah.
And then we'll do some tulips today. And just, I picked the scene because it has big shapes. So it's kind of easy to follow along with. So when I paint it, I paint like just the sky and the back and the hills in the background. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll come in and paint like the pinks and the colors of the tulips. And then I'll paint the greens. And then we have this little window of reflection down here from the sky. And so that's fun because it's just bigger shapes. And then so you can paint in your bigger shapes and then you can add detail to it kind of as you go.
Okay, honestly, when you showed me the picture, um, because I look at detail, I didn't see bigger shapes. I saw tiny shapes. I was like,
Right.
"Oh, this is so hard. There's a mountain in the back and all these lines of the tulips, and I was like,
Yeah.
can I do that? Especially
And
with
it's really just breaking
watercolor.
it down into simple shapes. And it was funny because one of the very first watercolors I did, is titled 1,000 Tulips, because I literally painted like a field of 1,000 tulips. Like, I mean, I didn't count them,
Wow.
but there was a lot. And it took me a
Uh-huh.
very long time to do it, but it was so much fun to learn. And that's the whole reason I love to paint, is just because of the experimentation and getting to learn new things. And watercolor is so unpredictable sometimes that you're always learning something with it.
That is so good. I love that. The just to create that's that's something that I think, like as you were saying, we were in choir together, right? And so it's like the and Elka also, like we're in choir, we're so just the music, like
Yeah.
just how God created us to be. It's like just I love it. I just love it because there's just so much in us. And when we're out there, so like you were mentioning about loving to walk in the forest in nature, it's God's creation, so we're attracted to that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like just the
Yeah.
creator in us is attracted to the creator in him. And I just
And it
love it.
brings you
I just love
peace.
it. Yes, it
That,
does. It just does.
and that's most
So
of the things I paint is all nature based. So either water scenes, nature, landscapes, animals, flowers. So everything's very nature based in all my art.
yeah, I love that. So um with walking in aloha, like we have the aloha um format. So the ALOHA, affirmations and actions, leadership and love, overcoming obstacles, health and healing, and then the acute awareness. So as we go along, I would like to just ask you some of those questions that pertain to the aloha, because I believe that in the aloha, it can be applied to anywhere in our lives. Even though mine was through the domestic violence, and that's how God walked me through my time of trial. I believe that He's actually putting it out there so that other people can see how that works in their lives, and how the
Yeah.
aloha that He gave to me is applied everywhere. And I've seen it so many times, like every time I've done a podcast with someone, we did the aloha format, and they were like, those are such amazing questions, and it applies to what they're doing, not anymore to what I was, you know and I'm like, it's
Yeah,
because it's aloha, and
exactly.
aloha aloha is like so big. And to get off of that, I remember, because I just remembered it. There was something about the Maui thing that you did. You raised money for
Yeah,
Lahaina.
yeah, Maui for the artist for Lahaina. And that was
Yeah,
a an auction that I was just part of. I donated a piece for that, and they raised just over 500K for grants for rebuilding, and also putting in back into the arts, because so much of the art and the culture community there was lost. And there was so many artists that lived there and worked there and lost studios and lost all their artwork, and the galleries lost all their artwork. And so they put a bunch of different grants together for both helping people to rebuild, and also helping to make sure that the culture centers and the people that do the art programs have the supplies and the things that they needed to continue teaching, like the children that they were helping, and giving those outreaches back to people.
well, that is so amazing, because I remember, going to Lahaina, and that was one of my favorite things about going into Maui, is going into Lahaina and going through the galleries, you know, and
Yeah.
shave ice, of course. But um, it was always so nice to be able to go into the galleries and look at the art, and I loved it. I just loved it when the artist was actually working on something at that time when I walked
Yeah.
in. And that to me was just so amazing. And then, of course, you have all the vendors outside selling all their things. And so when that happened in Lahaina, it was so devastating. But when I was reading your thing on, and I was like, oh, that was so nice of you to be a part of that. And, you know,
Yeah.
and you're all the way in Washington,
And
you
Lahaina had a
know?
special, yeah, and Lahaina had a special part for me because Eric and I actually got married in Maui on Kananapali, which I probably pronounced wrong. Um, and so we
No, you
spent like
did
8 days
great.
in Lahaina.
Oh,
And so we loved it there. And we were hoping to go back for our 20th anniversary, but that was like right before the fires happened. And so we were
Oh,
really bummed that that all happened and we changed our plans. But hopefully we'll get back eventually and get to see what they rebuild and everything.
yeah. Yes. It is coming back, and I don't doubt that Lahaina will come back and be as beautiful and as strong as it was before, with
Yeah.
everything that it was. Because it was, the community there is very strong. So, yeah. So, thank you for doing that. That is just so amazing. Such a blessing. So, all right. Did you want to, like, start us with the thing?
Yeah, I'll start with the sky on my end and then we can get into questions here in a second, if that's okay.
Yeah. So, how do you start your, like? I know that some people do wet on wet. Do I wet my thing?
I just do dry paper and I just do like really diluted color, like really wet
Okay.
color.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take some blue, any blue. I don't care. Just take
Okay.
some blue and we're
Perfect.
going to like start from the top and just make some blue across the middle of it. So I'm going to paint this part up here. And then I have some, if you have tissues handy or napkins or anything, I just use a little tissue and I dab out the little clouds because we have those Washington white fluffy clouds that we get here. So I just use a paper towel to dab that out. So I'm going to do that. And
Okay.
I will try to do it where I could show you. Can't promise anything.
All right.
So I'm just taking like a tealish blue, like a French ultramarine blue and a tealish blue. And I'm just going to lay the paint across. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can leave it like with some white showing because there's little clouds in there. Just a little bit of blue.
Oh, sorry. Let me turn this off. Have to turn the sound off again. Do you remember how I do that? I think I did it. Remember we had that issue. Are we still echoing on that side?
I'm also going to drop a little bit of the blue just down in this little puddle that we have
Wait, I need to mute this side.
down here.
Okay.
I'm just using a tissue. I can pick up the paint and make little clouds. Just kind of dabbing off where the tulips start a little bit. So now you can see that we have a blue sky with some little white clouds in there. And that's just
Oh,
the
okay,
first
okay.
first step. And I went over where the little mountain is in my sketch, because that'll be darker than the blue sky.
Okay. So you actually like made like a space where the tulips was above, right?
Yeah, so I went over, the sky goes over where the mountain's gonna be, but where the tulips are, they kind of start in here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay.
And then before that dries, because if it dries in watercolor, it'll make little splashy marks. Before that dries, I'm just going to take a little bit of a darker blue, and just where my mountains are, I'm just going to kind of drop some color in there. And it's going to fuse in with the sky a little bit. So it's because they're kind of bad in the background, they're going to be kind of fuzzy.
Okay, I see. I think I want to bring my blue
But
down
don't
a
use
little
too much
further.
water.
Oh, that's a.
Use a little thicker paint.
I think I put too much paint. Let me squish over my
We're just
blues a
practicing.
little
It's all
bit.
good.
Yeah. Oh, I think this paint is that sparkly paint, if I'm looking at it correctly.
Oh, it could be.
Okay. I'm going to make mountains.
And you can drop some green into the blue, into that blue if you want to, but you don't have to because they're pretty far off in the distance. I just added a touch of green in there, but
Okay.
so that's pretty much what I got. I guess so now we have a sky and we have some mountains. And those are our big shapes for the top of the painting.
Okay. So now, everyone, if you're looking at mine and you're looking at Connie's, don't mind mine because it does not look like hers.
Yours is
I.
always good, Michelle.
Okay, you're just too kind.
Hey, you're trying a painting that you're not even watching me do paint.
What thickness
Okay.
of paper are you guys using?
I'm
Mine
using
is a
one of
watercolor
those
paper.
cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm using one of those watercolor card things.
Yeah.
And paper and paint both are completely different in all the different brands. And like whether it's student grade or professional paint, you're going to get totally different effects with everything.
Oh, okay.
So, what daily affirmations and stuff do you use, like, or creative habits that help you stay inspired when you're doing your art?
Trying, yeah, trying to do something creative every day. And that's whether I'm drawing or painting or just going out and taking a walk in nature, taking pictures for ideas for paintings. That's my biggest thing is because that really kind of helps me stay grounded too and helps with my stress levels.
Oh, that's good.
And, and then I can also like, I try to remember like the biggest thing for me growing up was learning that, like you said earlier, that I'm one person and I'm me. And I'm not like everybody else, and everybody else is not going to be like me. And so when I'm painting and stuff, just remembering just to have fun and play with it and, do what I want to do and not worry about what other people are doing or comparing it to other people.
Yeah. Um, our pastor, Pastor Mike, is he always says like, what is it? Comparison is the killer, or something like that. I don't know the whole thing.
Definitely.
Comparison is a killer to your joy, or something like that. But it is true.
Yeah. Learning to love yourself for, what God gave us is so important.
Yes. So from here, when we're, what do we do from this?
Okay. So if you've got your mountains in, then the next thing I would do is add my, like the tulip, just the shape of the tulips coming on each direction. And you'll notice in the picture, they are going to start really small in the background. Um, really small in the background, and then they come out to like larger tulips here. So it's almost like a
Mm-hmm.
triangle that gets wider as it comes. So I'm just going to do that in pink, in my pink. So when I'm doing that, I've just kind of loosely got it like drawn in where my tulips are. So they're going to start smaller in the back, and then they're just going to get bigger in the front. And that pink color is just going to be kind of like a triangle. And right now that's all I'm worried about is just that shape.
Okay.
So thinner
Oh,
in
I
the back
so don't
and
have
wider
any
on the
pink
side.
in this palette.
You
There's
can use
absolutely
red
no
or
pink.
yellow,
No,
red,
this is a,
yellow,
what is this?
purple.
What is this palette? I'm like, what is this palette? It is some, oh, it's ocean color, glittery watercolor. It has no pink. It's like a whole palette of ocean tones. So I have purple. What if I did purple?
You could do purple.
Okay. Yeah, there's purple here.
And I'm just putting kind of a darker pink, purplish color at the bottom because they're going to be darker at the bottoms than they will be at the tops.
Okay, so you go from lighter at the top and then darker towards the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do
And see, I'm
that.
not painting all 1,000 tulips. And then I like to just kind of soften the edge of the bottoms of them because it's going to kind of mix with the green, which is the next step. So
Uh-huh.
instead of having a hard line of paint all the way across there, I'm just kind of using water and softening it a little bit.
Okay.
So it kind of blends.
I think that's what I do also with my watercolor is I don't think about the way watercolors does that hard dry stop, whatever you call that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So to soften that, what did you say? You just like you blend it out?
I
Is that
just,
what you're
yeah, I
doing?
just take my brush with a little bit of water on it and then just
Mm-hmm.
kind of rub against it.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And like we were talking about earlier, you were talking about not seeing the big shapes and things. And one thing that really
Mm-hmm.
helps me is by squinting at whatever I'm looking at. So if it's a picture or I'm seeing something outside, I always squint at it and you'll stop seeing the little shapes and you'll start seeing the big shapes.
Oh, that's a good way. That is true.
Yeah. Also helps you see values and like lights and darks.
Oh, that's very dark. Okay, let's do this dark tulips down here. My 1,000 tulips that are really not there, but they are. They are.
I did 2 painting trips with a group to the Tulip Festival up north. And it was
Uh-huh.
absolutely great to be able to just go out in the fields and like take pictures and paint and have fun. The first year it was absolutely beautiful, and it was like this picture. It was gorgeous, blue skies. The second year we were there, it downpoured the entire time, and it was not as fun.
I miss that. Going to the tulip farms. Oh, we do have, where is it? I'm not quite sure. Is it in the Big Island or somewhere? But there's lavender, lilacs. I don't know. We don't have those big kind of flower things. Okay. Hopefully that'll do. That'll do.
And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just looking for the shapes.
Okay. So in leadership and love, so this is the L for Aloha. How do you hope your art and creative journey inspire others to step into their own gifts?
I think because I've spent my life learning both the skills of like painting and drawing, and I've learned the skills of how to be creative and get my brain to turn off long enough to actually have ideas that I like. Um, I think in sharing that with other people is really helpful. And that's one thing I try to do with my friends and people that I'm working with, or even if I'm teaching like at a school or something like that. I try to make sure that I teach, kind of share how I learned those things, and that, you know, you build up your skills a little bit at a time, and you're not trying not to be hard on yourself. And if you create something you love, then that's super exciting. And I get so excited when I have friends that actually like message me on Facebook or call me or whatever, and they're like, hey, look what I did. And it can be watercolor, it can be cross stitch, it can be anything, whatever they made. And just the fact that they're out there and they're creating something and they felt like they wanted to share it with me is really important. I just love that. I'm one of those people that'll never turn down people from like sending me pictures and be like, hey, look what I did, because I want to celebrate it with them.
Oh, that's so sweet. That is so good. I love that. I always take joy in that also when we have our painting groups and things like that. Elka knows. Like,
Definitely.
I always love to do that picture, where you're like,
No.
everybody needs to show your picture.
Yeah.
even
I love that.
even
That's
if
the way it
I
should be.
even if I have some people, like they're like, oh, I'm not done yet, I'm gonna work on it at home. I'm like, then show me when you're done, take a picture later, I want to see it, because I love that. It's such
Exactly.
a joy to see that. Okay, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you the story. I do um uh, a little thing with the elderly over at my husband's auntie's place. So she lives in this apartment and it's for elderly and disabled. And um, there was this lady. She didn't want to do this painting with us, and she's having such a hard time. She's like, I don't know how to. And so anyway, she sticks with it all night long. She's like right there, and she's doing it, and she gets this painting done, and she's so proud of herself and everything like that. And she brings it home, and her husband is so amazed by it. He didn't even think she painted it. He was like, "What? You did that?"
Oh, cool.
And next, yeah, he was like so thrilled by it. Next thing you know, he put it up on the wall, and she was like, oh my gosh, he loves it so much, it's on the wall. And so she had to tell everyone, like, it's on the wall, it's like on the wall, like she was so happy that like he thought so highly of it, that like, wow, she's an artist now, in his eyes, kind of thing. I was like, that is so sweet. I love it.
That's
So
adorable. I love
yeah,
that.
that's why I think there is a
And
creative in all of
the
us,
other thing along the same lines is like Michelle and I both have similar styles in painting, and we both paint very nature with bright colors. And a lot of times, artists are told don't paint pretty art, but a lot of my stuff is really pretty art that is very calming and everybody says how calming it is to see my pictures. And a lot of it's kind of dreamscapey. And so I like to bring calmness and help with people's anxieties and things like that too. So if I can help them learn how to do that themselves or just through my own paintings and sharing it with people, I think that's really helpful too.
Yeah, that is so good. In my book, 31 Steps to Mastery, it is a book of lists. And in there, I did put that as one of the posts for um, this podcast. And it was on, I think, list 23. And in it, it has art and craft because it's in doing art and everything, and that's why I love doing it over at um, with Auntie Anne, is because it relieves stress and it's relaxing, so I like that.
It is. It's very meditative, and especially with working with watercolor, because you have the funness of the colors and the pigments and how they work with the water. And sometimes when I paint, I'll paint pretty tight and detailed, but other times I just throw paint and water on paper and see what happens with it because it's always going to do something fun. And that's the way you learn, is what colors go with what and which colors mix well or which colors granulate and look fun, have this nice granulation to it. So I love that, and getting to just, it's very meditative and very relaxing, very calming. And I've always had anxiety. I've struggled since, having trauma as a child, and I've always had the anxiety issues. And that's my biggest way of calming myself down, and just calming myself down, helping with stress, not to let my mind run with a million different things. And that's really helpful to me too.
Oh, that's so good. you know um I'm switching over because I we bid for our schedules at work, and I've been having Fridays, Saturdays as my days off, and I've been missing Sunday church, and I'm like, I am done with that. I'm like, I need my Sunday back. And so as soon as I went to go bid and there was an opening, I'm like, I'm taking that Sunday. And so my husband, he doesn't go to church with me often, but he's like, oh, but there's Sunday differential, there's this, because you get paid more on a Sunday. And it's just their way of, like getting people to work on a Sunday. And so I'm like, you know what? I don't care about the extra money. I don't care about the, differentials or whatever. I said, whatever money that is lost because I'm not working on a Sunday, I don't doubt God is going to make that up. So I believe he wants me in church more than he wants me at work. So I am now taking that Sunday. And so I have Sunday, Mondays off starting on in April, and I thank God because it's um, starting April 20th, which is Easter Sunday. I actually switch over to that Sunday, Monday, and what I want to do is I want to do more of this. I want to, like Sunday, go to church, take time, go to the beach, take time and go, you know, up to Ayahel and do our painting again, and like do those things. So yeah, more God dates, more
That's what Eric and I
time.
like to do too on weekends. We
Oh,
like to
that's
go
so
out, take the
good.
dogs out. We like to go to down to the waterfront, like to go out and do the nature stuff.
Yeah. See, I've been missing that. So that will be my Sundays now. I'm going to go to church and I'm going to spend time with God. That'll be my day. I'm so happy. I'm already looking forward to April 20th. It's like a month away, but you know what I mean.
That's
uh,
awesome.
all right. So
That'll be good
let's
for you.
carry on. Yes, I know. It's been too long.
If you want to let that dry for just a second, if you want to do the next question, we'll
Oh yeah.
I'll
Okay,
do the
so
next one.
overcoming obstacles. You shared about overcoming like PTSD and fear of being seen. How has creativity helped you reclaim your confidence?
I think the best thing is it's helped me learn one rejection and like how to deal with people's, if they don't like you or they don't like your art. Especially with doing competitions and things like that that are really, rejection's hard to deal with. So learning how to deal with that better and not let it affect me and bring me down or get depressed about it. And just realizing that not everything, every judge in a show is going to be different. And I've had that happen where I've entered a piece in one show and it doesn't get in the show. I've entered it in another show and it wins an award. So it just depends on who the judge was for that show. And it comes down to what people like. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, this is what I do. This is what I paint. And if people don't like that, then I'll suggest them to go to another artist or a friend of mine that may do that type of art. But I always know that there's going to be people out there that really like it and really love the stuff or really happy when they get the piece from that I've done for them. And it's made me think more about the uniqueness and individuality of each person and each artist, and just finding that in myself too. And that's been probably my biggest thing. Kind of
You
self
know
love
that
and learning to, love yourself like God loves you and all that stuff.
Yeah, that is so true because even as a speaker, as a coach, anything, right? When you reach out to someone or anything, really, you may resonate with one person and not another, right? We and it doesn't reflect on you. It's just that person that came up to you, and so we can't take it personally all the time. One thing that I had to tell my husband, and I love it because now he tells it to our other coworkers and the you know um, new hires that come through. When you're at work and we're TSA, right, we're saying the same thing to the passengers that come in over and over and over and over again, and sometimes it gets frustrating because they're not listening. But you have to remember that you only said it once to that one person. You may have said it 1,000 times in the day, but you only said it once to that one person. So you
Right.
cannot judge the fact that you're already frustrated or you already have something inside of you. You have to let it go and be like, I'm only talking to this one person this one time, and then let it go. So what like what you're saying, your art may resonate with one person and be like, oh, not, like you said, it didn't go anywhere. Then you enter it in another contest and it wins because it resonated different with another person, right? Another judge
Right.
or whatever. And it's that same way with us. Anytime we do anything, anywhere we go, our daily lives, as we go through our daily lives, we just need to remember that each moment we take it moment by moment and we can't take it personally every time. So that is so good.
Yeah.
So um, did you want
And
me
that's
to
one
do the
thing I
next one
share with
or
my
would you say?
artist friends too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we'll do it in a second here. One
Uh-huh.
thing was that I share with a lot of my artist friends is when you're in a show, and a lot of times you'll get 100 pieces entered into a show. But if you don't win any awards or you're not in the top 10 of that show, you're not going to get any recognition for it. But I always try to remember, if someone bought your piece out of that show, then your piece just got best of show to that one person because they spent their money on it and they took it home.
Yes.
And that's more important to me. Like, I feel more excited about that than, I mean, I love awards and stuff too, but it's just, that's always been really cool to me that people can have that happen.
Yeah. That is so good. That is so good. I mean, I know I like recognition. I do, especially like when it's someone close to you. Hey, this is my husband. It's like sometimes it's like things go right over his head or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, that's good. You know, and you expected a little bit more, right? You're like,
Right.
that that was it. That's all I got from you, you know? But it's like then the next person they're like, "Oh wow, that is amazing. Good job." And you're like, "Wow, I didn't even get that from him." But you know, you just never know. So sometimes I tell him, you know, he's like, "Oh, but I did say." I'm like, so I had to realize, like, yes, it does come off different with some people and others. I'm like, okay, never mind. It's all good. It's all good. Whichever way it comes off of you, I'll take it for what it is. And I thank God
Yeah.
for it.
Yep. And recognizing everybody gives compliments differently.
True, true. That is very, very true. That may be his grand compliment. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the green, pretty much in the same way that I did the pink, but I'm going to do the green
Okay.
down here, coming out towards the edges, towards the corners, and not. I don't know if you can see it in here, but the green on the tulips actually have like the stems that come down, and then they kind of have little leaves, the leaves that come out and over the aisleway. So when I paint it, I'm going to paint kind of both of those directions. So I'm going to paint downwards a little bit, and I'm going to paint out kind of over the aisleway a little bit too. So let's go ahead and do that.
Oh, so not straight. You're kind of pointing it towards the center,
Yeah, on the lower parts where the leaves
the
would
lower
be,
parts.
because the
Okay.
stems are going to be straight down, but and I've got it kind of drawn out on mine, but the stems are going to be kind of like this, you know. And it does, the whole thing's going to be green, but it's going to be different types, different shades of green kind of. And then when I get to the leaves down below,
Mhm.
those ones are going to come kind of out this way and over the area. And they'll get bigger in the front and smaller in the back. So,
Oh, I
kind
see.
of,
I see. Yeah. Okay. I get it.
and then I just kind of blend those together because you're going to see that they're together. And then on this side, I'm going to do the same thing and just do the stems.
Dark
It's really
green,
hard to paint
green.
upside down if you haven't noticed, but I'm trying. And then on this side, they'll kind of go over like this.
Okay.
And that just gets your big green shapes in there. So kind of like that.
Then you go across this way. Oh, I'm seeing it. You know, like as you're doing it, you're like, oh wait, I'm seeing it happening.
I mean, you can use a little water and just kind of blend those things to, those shapes a little bit together if you need to. So this would be kind of how I start my paintings, these first layers of blocking in colors. And then later, which I can always finish this one and we can post it in Michelle's group. And then later I will go back and add details to the big shapes. So that's where mine's at.
So, you know, in the distance,
As we did the
as
triangle
it
shapes on the
goes.
side.
Okay, okay, I see. And then in the distance, you're just kind of connecting it in the middle, in the far, far
Yep,
distance.
because you're always going to have a vanishing point in the middle at the horizon line. And that's where everything
Right,
guys kind of
right,
comes together.
right.
But by blocking in these big color these big color shapes, then the going back and adding the details is actually comes out easier.
Oh, okay. I think my walkway, my aisle is a little wide, but
It's okay. It'll be wide, super wide in the front, and then it just kind of goes back together in the back.
okay. But at least like I can see the distance. Like you can see the perspective, right?
Yeah,
I'm using
right.
words. No, the correct words.
I was thinking depth, so you got it better than I did.
So, uh, see, you can't really tell my painting because see,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I can
No.
see it on yours.
Yeah.
Okay. So, with watercolors, so say I was painting with acrylic and I looked at it and I said, oh, I want to put a little bit more on the mountains or whatever. With watercolor, can we do the same thing on it? Or
You
do we
can. And
mix it
actually,
up?
the cool thing with watercolor is some colors you can actually lift color up to make it lighter. And then some
Mm-hmm.
colors are more staining, so they're not going to lift much. But some colors you can actually lift the colors out and make highlights. And that's a nice way to make highlights. And then you can add your darks in after the fact and do more details.
Oh, okay.
So like with you get
Nice.
your basic shapes in, then you can go in and add darker colors on your details and make your shapes and your like your tulips and your leaves and things like that.
Nice. Okay.
And you can layer colors on watercolor pretty well that is transparent where acrylics would not be. And so you can actually, like if you put a yellow over your greens, you will see that it'll turn it like a yellow green. If you turn blue, put blue over your greens, it would turn it more of a blue green. So you'll actually see the colors underneath your on your first layers up through your next layers, especially if your paints are kind of transparent paints.
Oh, okay. So that's a nice way to experiment with the colors.
Yeah, in watercolor, that's called glazing, when you put one color over another color and it shows through. And a lot of people, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of artists will do that for like up to like 3 or 4 layers, and they'll get really in-depth, like really cool color combinations that you wouldn't get just from a tube paint.
Oh, so it must be hard to duplicate the color though if you're doing it like that. Like so
Yeah,
say like I'm imagining your macaw. And so if you were doing that, the color may be different throughout the body because you're adding layers.
yeah, you're layering. And in
Oh.
order to remember that, you really like, I take a lot of notes next to like my paintings. So like if I do something that I'm like, oh, I really love that. I love that effect. Then I'll actually write it down on a piece of paper next to me and kind of, or in my little journal I have, and just keep a note of how I got that effect. Sometimes I even put on like the back of the paper, like the painting when I'm done, so I can remember.
Oh, that's a good
That's a
idea.
good tip. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's a good tip. Writing it down. Because, like, I was
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I would totally forget. And then the next
Right.
stroke would be totally different color.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
I would not remember.
Right. Oh, that's so
And a
good.
lot of
Okay.
watercolor artists will spend a lot of time actually making little charts of their colors and like glazing it over other colors and like writing it down which ones are which. And they spend a lot of time on that, doing those. And so if you're working with just a few colors to start, it makes it a lot easier to learn your combinations than trying to work with like 100 colors to start.
So that's what that color block thing that they do. Because I've seen it
Yeah.
where they have those little squares.
Mhm.
And
And you can do
okay.
that where you're like mixing two colors and you put the mix together, or you put like colors on one side and colors on the top, and then you overlap them, and that's like the glazing one. So you would see what the effects of this color over that color would be.
Oh, the one that looks kind of like a hatch, whatever,
Yeah.
hatch cape, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, kind of
Okay.
a weaving look.
Yes, yes, that one. The one that looks like a weave. Perfect. Okay. So, like in the picture, in the center, it almost looks reflective.
It is. So it's got the brownish gray color of the dirt that goes all the way back to the
Uh-huh.
back. And then it has a puddle, and that puddle is going to reflect like your blue. And then you can actually paint in some little flowers that it's reflecting.
Okay. So, the reason why I remember that is because I live in Hawaii and I want to paint like the beach, right? And when the water comes up to the sand and then it pulls back away, there's still water and it has that reflective look on
Yeah.
the sand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to paint that.
Yes.
I don't.
Okay.
So, yes.
Pretty much the same thing. You're painting the colors you see. So like in this puddle, instead of thinking you're painting water, because that's what it is, you're painting water. But instead of thinking about that, you're actually painting just a little bit of the sky color and the flower color. And that's the same thing with the reflections on the beach, is you're going to see the colors that it's reflecting. A lot of times you'll see it like reflecting the light of the wave. So you'll see like the ripples of the wave, and it'll be reflected down below. You're just kind of looking at the
Mm-hmm.
colors. So if you don't look at what like, oh my gosh, that's a reflection, that's scary. You just look at what color is it reflecting underneath there. And then if you can just put that color, you're going to get the effect of a reflection.
Oh, okay, okay. So if it's like the sunset and the water pulls away and now the where the water is, it's now that orange color. I just paint that orange.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then it will.
So
Yeah,
you're just
okay.
looking for that.
So stop looking at it like I'm painting a shiny reflection. Just do color.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it helps, like if you see a color and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not sure what color that is. Like sometimes I can use like a little hole punch and just put it over that, just where that color is. And you can kind of see, or like use your finger if you're like out in the middle, like looking somewhere. And you can actually just
Uh-huh.
like narrow down just that one color. And that's helped me a lot too.
Oh wow, that is so good.
Since color is so a determinant of other things around it, sometimes you kind of have to isolate that one color to be able to tell, yeah, that's really a brown color, or that's really blue, when it doesn't look like it next to the other colors.
Very good. Oh, I love it. Okay. Can't wait to go paint the
Okay, so
beach
the
now.
next thing I was going to do is just add some brown.
Okay.
So I'm just doing kind of a gray because I don't really have brown on my palette right now. But I'm just going to do the gray, and I'm going to do it on both sides of that puddle. So where the puddle is, I'm going to leave alone, and then I'm just going to put the gray in these two areas. So the same thing we did with the tulips and the green. So I'm just going to go in and start it smaller at the back and bigger in the front. And the other thing is too, since if you've been in the tulip fields, these are like big little trenches. So they actually have kind of a curve to them. And if you can put that kind of curve into your brush strokes, that'll help too. And I've kind of tucked a little bit of the color up under the green of the, left a little bit of the green and then put some of the dirt color kind of underneath the leaves.
Okay.
Like that. And now that we've added the brown, we actually have a mud puddle.
Okay.
And a little trick to make that look a little bit more realistic would be to add a little bit more darks under the leaves on the sides.
Oh, because it's shadowy.
Yeah, so your light's going to be sitting more in the middle of it, even if it's not indirect light. And if you put a little bit of shadow area under the leaves, it's going to give it a more 3D appearance. Again, leaning upside down. Kind of like that. And then you just blend it out. And I just used a little water to kind of blend it from the lighter shade to the darker shade. Like that.
So towards the back, it gets darker, yeah?
Yeah, because it's kind of going to be more, yeah, a little bit more blurry in the back.
Yeah.
A lot harder to determine things.
Elka, how are you doing over there?
I'm just watching you guys. My room, I just rearranged the room and everything, so everything is still a mess. I got some cabinets and stuff for my son, and so I don't even have my paints ready. So, are you
Oh,
recording this?
it is recorded. It'll
Okay,
be
good.
on Facebook and everything again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. This is so informative.
Yes, it is. It's so good. Thank you, Connie.
Of
Yes.
course.
And watercolor to
Sharing little
me,
tips has helped me a lot.
yeah, the tips help a lot. And watercolor to me, I've only done a couple of things. It's so intimidating. And then the reason I asked about the paper is my paper. Maybe I make it too wet. Because
Yeah, and it
it's got
depends. It really depends on the brand of the paper too. Like if it's a cotton paper, you can put more water on it. But if it's just a regular pulp paper or an art paper, then it's going to take less water.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like I paint a lot with a lot of water sometimes, so I always make sure I have a cotton-based paper, but that's just because I paint a lot with wet paint.
Yeah.
That's why I tell my students too when I'm teaching people, when people are first starting, the most important thing, even if you get just a couple of colors, is to get like an artist grade paint and an artist grade paper. The brushes don't matter so much, but if you can get an artist grade paint and an artist grade paper and not student grade, it'll actually give you a lot better effects and you'll learn a lot more on how the watercolor works.
Oh, okay. Artist grade. Okay.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see when you look like at a store or online, they have it listed normally as a student grade or an artist grade.
Okay.
Because sometimes if people are just using only student grade, it'll won't work as well. It won't blend. It doesn't soak into the paper the same. So if you really love the effects of watercolor and how it mixes, you won't get that on the student grade, and people get kind of frustrated sometimes.
Yeah, that must be what I have because it does frustrate me. It's like, oh, I didn't want that.
I think at first when I first started using watercolor, um, because I was teaching at the school and stuff, and you just have the kids painting on
Yeah.
whatever paper, and I was like,
Yeah,
watercolor doesn't move, it just sucks into the
Yeah.
paper. It just, and
yeah,
I didn't realize that what I was doing was I was literally having them paint watercolor on paper, regular paper that just sucked up their water,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah.
it wasn't doing
And
much of
that's the cool thing
anything.
with the cotton. Yeah, with the cotton paper, it actually absorbs the water, and you can actually keep it like wet. Like you were saying, wet on wet painting. You can actually dip the paper down and then add color into it. And it'll absorb into the water, and it'll move around a lot. And you can actually like tilt your paper and move it this way and make all kinds of designs and move it where you want. And then when the colors mix on that paper, there's little divots in the paper. So it's a little textured. And so that pigments will actually soak, like kind of settle into those divots, and it'll make kind of a granulating effect where the paints mix, and you'll see really fun effects like that you can't get from just mixing a color on your palette.
Oh.
Oh, that's nice. I have to try
Yeah.
that. Because I think this one, it has those divots, like you said. Like it has all these like
Yeah,
dents in it, right? That's what you're talking about, like the
little texture.
texture. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think if this one was that more wet, I would be able to move it around. But
yeah,
so good. Oh, let's finish the questions that I have over here. So the we were on O, overcoming obstacles, and then health and healing, the H in Aloha. How do you use art as a tool for mental health? I know that we already talked a lot about the mental health and the relaxation part.
yeah. So,
Um, so
yeah,
how
and
do you
I
use
kind of feel like
art?
my calling.
Oh,
Go ahead,
sorry,
you can
sorry.
finish.
How do you use art as a tool for mental health and happiness, both for yourself and those you inspire?
Yeah, so that's what my calling is like I try to help people and like inspire people to create and pick up something that they enjoy doing and getting back to things that they really enjoy, like from childhood or something that they just have picked up over the years that they love to do. um, and getting back into a habit of doing those things, because I like we talked about earlier, it really does help calm the mental state. Helps calm your anxiety. It helps put you in a better, more positive mood most of the time. If you're dealing with something and it's really stressful, getting in and just spending 15 minutes drawing or painting or whatever you like to do can really help with that mental state.
Yeah, that is so good. I know that for myself, there's been times when I just felt like, just give me time to go paint something, let me let me just go sit somewhere and paint. um I went through a I don't know what I was going through, but I would go to the beach a lot and I would just paint the sunsets or whatever. And I just needed that time to like decompress the week or something. And painting was one of those things that helped me out a lot. So I
Definitely.
was on a uh, coaching call last night with a coach in Australia, and she was asking, she came out and she goes, "So, how important is art to you?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like I kind of thought like, you want to like that's like a part of me. I don't know how do I answer this question. That's how I felt. I was like, I believe that we are creative. So whether we're painting, whether we're writing or singing or whatever, that is art to me. So to take art away, I think I would be the most depressed person in the world.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So when she asked that question, I was like blown away. It was like, what? How do you even ask? No, I'm just kidding. But it was that big of a question, right? And so what she was trying to do was actually help me with constructing a speech, taking not taking it away from the Walking in Aloha, the book, but she was saying that as a speech, my book is way too long to throw into a speech. You know, I'm going to lose people that way. Um,
Yeah.
but to make it into like 3 points instead of the whole five, letters, and having to explain what aloha is and everything like that. And I never really thought about it as she was breaking it down. That is her profession, and I'm glad that she was on with me, because I was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about it like that. And so when she asked me that question, she said, what it is that your main point is creative, is that how creativity saved your life. And I was like, wow. you know i was I was pretty blown away by that, because I know how important it was to me to know that, as God is our creator, we're created in his image, right? And so I believe that yes, we are creatives, created in his image. And she said there's tons of times when she gets on a call and people are like, I'm a creative. And she's like, she hears it a lot, and she goes, but with you, you are a creative. And that is wonderful. She goes, I hear it a lot, but I don't see it a lot. People can
Yeah.
say it, but to see it. And she goes, yours
Right.
is how creativity saved your life. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you blowing me away,
Yeah.
all the way from Australia. you know so that's why I say God puts people in place, and it doesn't matter how or where they are, wherever in the world, somehow, some way he will get you together. And like I was telling my husband, I said, I didn't know like she was a believer or anything like that until we started talking. And then she was like, it's you're going to put it into 3 points, and remember the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. That's why you're going.
Oh.
And she was like, three, it's divine. And I'm like, God, how do you do this? how, how do you do this kind of stuff, right? How do you connect me with these people? And I don't even know. So I just thank him for how he works and orchestrates things. And so he's amazing. I can't say it enough. And I believe that there's so much that he can work in so many other people, like having people come onto the podcast and things like that. I pray that every time someone is on, that, like Connie, you're touching Elka's life. The tips that
Right.
you're giving her
Yeah.
is like, those kind of things, right? You just don't know. So, like,
That's
um,
awesome.
so what was that?
Yeah, that's awesome how that works. I just
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, yeah. So the last one is acute awareness. What has been the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself since stepping fully into this season in your creative life? So I know that you went from um, now working, uh, like I still work on 9 to 5. No, it's not 9 to 5. It is more like, I don't know. Anyway, you know what I mean. But
Uh,
and I want to be you one day where I can say I can go home and create, and be home and do that full time. So,
yeah, and
how
I was blessed this year to be able to do that. After the doctor I worked for retired, and so being at home now it's on me to make sure I get my butt up and go in the studio and do things, and get on my website and list things, and things like that. But that's what I struggle with now is had taking the time to actually get my butt in here and do stuff. So that's what I'm working on. But the main thing I've probably learned throughout my life in with artwork and talking to people and the meetings and stuff is just not to be so hard on myself, in both personal and art and all my aspects of my life. um Learning just to have fun, go back to like what my inner child liked to do when I was younger, um and just learning to play again with artwork, and that's where your creativity comes from. um but really not comparing myself to other people, and knowing that I'm not a stereotypical gallery artist, because I have pretty artwork that galleries don't always want to have in their art gallery. uh, but I'm okay with that, and that's what I love to do. So it makes other people happy, it makes me happy, and so I'm trying to just focus on the fact of what, you know, I'm an individual. I had a quote that I don't know where I picked it up from, but it was, the ability to create is God given, but what we create is our gift to God. And so that's always a fun, thing to think about, is just, everything you're doing, like whether I'm painting a picture, of I'm talking to a friend, I'm teaching a class, whatever it is, I'm touching other people's lives, like you said. And people pick up tips from me, and I pick up tips from other people. And I'll always be a student and learning from other artists, because I still love to learn from all the other artists that I admire. So that's my main thing. And just, spending time having appreciation for nature and the things that God created, and putting that on paper, and just being able to see through my eyes kind of what I like to paint and what I see in the world.
that is so good. That is so good. I want to, like I said, I want to be you one day and be able to create full time. Um, One of my big dreams is to travel the US in a RV and paint along the way.
That would be great.
Yeah.
We've talked
Yes.
about that too.
Right. That is so good. Uh, so um we'll finish this up, and then you could just like send us a finished painting. I know that
No
it's
worries. I'll work on a little bit more
already,
of the details and send it over to you.
yeah, because I know it's already
So
11
on the
o'clock
the one
and
thing I was gonna the one thing I was gonna share on the puddle in the middle, since that's what we're working
oh
on
yeah,
next,
yeah, oh
is
yeah,
I don't know
we
if you can
need
see in the
to
picture,
that. Uh-huh.
but in the picture, when there's the wet, like we were talking about at the beach, but when there's the wet mud around the puddle, there's kind of like a lighter outline. So one of those tricks that I've learned to do is when I paint, this is going to be really awkward. When I paint, I'm going to do this real quick first. So when I repaint my leaf reflection in there, I'm leaving a little bit of that white space between
Oh,
the
okay, I see
brown
that.
and the green. And that'll help make it look like the effect of water reflections. And then but it'll still have the reflection in there. And I had already put the sky color in early, but if you hadn't put the sky color in, you can put that in and then let that dry and then do your tulips. But you want to let that dry first.
Okay.
If you already did the sky color, then you can add the tulip on top of it with, and it's not going to run into it.
So we're adding a little bit of the blue in the center because that's the sky.
Yeah, so you can add just a little touch of blue, and then I would wait for that to dry before putting anything on top of that.
But we're leaving the white on the edges because we don't want
Yeah,
that to have anything. Okay.
yeah, because that'll help it just kind of look like a puddle.
Okay.
And this is a
I'll
very,
practice this
abstract,
time.
basic painting, but at least, you see the kind of the shapes and how I'd approach an actual real full-size painting. This is the same way I'd approach it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Connie, do you have YouTube videos too?
I don't right now. I'm hoping to reset up some classes online here in the next couple of months. So as soon as I do, I will definitely try to get that information out to everybody.
Yes. That'll be
Yeah,
great.
Connie had a Patreon, right, Connie, that you're gonna redo, start
Yeah,
up
right now
again?
I do. Yeah, I'm gonna try to kickstart my Patreon back up because then I can post the videos through there too.
What is that?
And so that's kind of my reflections.
So Patreon is like a how do you say it? Like a teaching kind of course
Oh,
platform.
Yeah, it's kind of like a private
Yeah.
page. So instead of being like YouTube, it's a private page where people can be on there for they can be on there for free or they can be on there for like a subscription level and like get more in-depth classes.
uh-huh.
I'm hoping to have like a free level that I can do basic tips and tricks and stuff like that, and then also be able to do like inspiration for like creative, making people like want to create more. And then
Yeah.
I'll do probably a paid subscription that's a little bit more in depth for like actual like watercolor demos and things that I like to paint that I put actually in a like video demo for people.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I like those uh tips where like I didn't even know how to use brushes, like the different shapes of the brushes,
Uh-huh.
they do
Yeah.
the leaves and all of that. And so even those, like if I had the time to just sit and absorb all of that, I would do that definitely. My son, he thinks that it's such a joke between us because I feel like I can purchase all this lessons and I'm going to do it, you know? I'm like, I will get to it. I will, you know? And he's like, Mom, but you don't even have time. I'm like, yeah, but I will. And no, I have and I always make sure I buy the lifetime, the one that says lifetime on it because
Uh-huh.
I just may never get to them. If there's a time limit on it, it just might, run out and I wasted the money. So I might as well pay for the lifetime. So I can get to it sometime. But yeah, it's a running joke with my son. And
Yeah.
it's, but
Yeah.
I try, I really do want that. But it would be great.
And
So
nowadays with
having that.
technology and YouTube and all the artists that are out there, that do the videos and the teaching, there's so many great people that are on there teaching and doing demos, and you can go on there for free and learn so much. So yeah, YouTube is awesome for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's why one day, one day be a, I will be a full time creator with everything I do. But
Well, you're doing very
I
good on your way.
yes, and like we always say, right? It's all in God's timing, and um, I'm always on different calls and stuff, and I was on a call, and I was saying that TSA right now pays for my um, pays for what I do here. Like it pays for my books that I create. It pays for my time when I travel. It pays for, and that's what TSA does for
Yeah.
me right now. And I just thank God for that, because without it, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And one day, uh, it will it will get turned around where I can make money on the other end. But up until then, I'm like, God, you have orchestrated things the way you have so far, and I trust that everything will be the way that it should be. And that's one thing that I always encourage everyone that I talk to. um, and it doesn't matter how hard they're having it at the moment. I say, you know it's all in God's timing, because
Yeah.
who would have known that I would have two books out? Who would have known that to think of writing a book a year would come so easy in my mind when I wasn't even wanting to write the first one, right? So it's that, what do you call that 1 minute mile one, or whatever, the one that they said at one point they thought they could never run a 1 minute mile, right? And then now how
Hmm.
many people are running a 1 minute mile? And so as soon as that, whatever it is surpassed in your lifetime or in anyone else's lifetime, you can do it. And with Christ, anything is possible. And I'm always like, you know what? Oh, that's what it was. I was on a call and they were talking about how many millionaires there are in the US. And I said, that is the truth. It is the truth, but it is not impossible to be there anymore. The way that the world is and the way that finances are, it's not impossible to get to a place where, you know, everyone can become financially free. And I'm like, one day we'll do that. It's in God's timing, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you for
Always.
being, yeah, thank you for being on. I want to respect your time. I know that we went way over. It's 11 o'clock now. Um, but um, is there anything else you want to share? Like, where can they reach you? How can they reach you? What's your website and all of that?
Uh, because of my name, it'd probably be easiest for me to give you the link and you just post it. But ConniesWatercolors.com. But it's Conni without an E. And then I'm also on Instagram under Connie Reinecke art or artist. And then I have a watercolor page on Facebook too of Connie Reinecke watercolors. I'll have Michelle post it so she can, get the spelling
Okay.
and everything.
Yeah, and then like on the Facebook, we can just drop it on there under the um post
Yeah,
for this one right now so that we can keep everything together and everybody will know where to
Okay.
find everything. But I will repost this. And with Riverside, they're so amazing that I can break down into little tidbits. And so um, it'll have shorts and the tips and tricks that will come from that. AI is wonderful.
awesome.
People may not like it sometimes, but it is
It's
what
a
it
useful
is.
tool.
It is a
Yeah.
useful tool. And, you know, I always go back to the fact that at one point, we took pictures and people had to stand still and wait for it to develop. And
Right.
then it went to, those switching snap cameras. And then it went to digital cameras. And, everyone got used to the idea that we went to digital. So let's get on with the information age and move on. There's AI now, so we'll get used to it. But
Definitely.
yeah, so that's what Riverside does, and that's why I love using this platform. But I just want to close in prayer. Thank you so much for being on the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. Father God, I just thank you for this day, and I thank you for Connie and Elka for being on, and I thank you for everyone else who are, watching and will view this later, or who will just be listening to the podcast later on. I thank you, Father, for all that you have given us in our creativity because you are the creator, Father, and the gifts that you have given us is just so amazing. Father God, let us use our gifts in honor of you and let us bring it to the world and not just for ourselves, but for other people. And as Connie's doing, and as like what I want to do is to encourage people to use their gifts, the gifts that you have given them in their lives also. So we come before you, Father, and we ask that you go before us through this day, through this week, and in our lives. We love you, Lord. Bless us, protect us, and as always, Lord, we love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys for being on. And I will repost this and I'll put it out on the podcast and I'll tag you.
Okay. Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank
Nice
you so
meeting you.
much.
Bye.
Of course.
Bye,
Thank you.
Elka.
Bye.